alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Hello and welcome to Alive After Reading. I'm your host, Tim Niederreiter, author of several books that are doing a little better than I expected lately. But no, never mind that. That's a tangent. Welcome to the show, and welcome to our new guest, Paul Bahou. Welcome to the show, Paul.
Hey, Tim. What's up?
What's up is you. What do you write, and what sort of stuff do you put out there in the world?
So I just started dipping my toes into fiction. I released my debut novel. It's science fiction. It's called Sunset Distortion is the name of the series, and this particular entry is called The Pyramid at the End of the World.
Ooh, sounds kind of like an Ancient Aliens plus Future Aliens thing.
All the aliens, past, present, and future, my friend.
Oh, is there time travel? Or is that a spoiler?
My answers are no, and still read the book. But
all right, cool.
Yeah, it's my first novel. I used to write for a punk magazine called Smash Magazine for years. I wrote the politics column. It was called Politics. Get it? And I actually wrote grants for 10 years and was I've been writing, but not in the world of fiction, and I always wanted to, and so I did.
Oh, cool. So, do you have any big influences when it comes to writing fiction, or besides your background as a journalist, I guess?
Yeah, right. Journalist would be a pretty loose term.
Well, or whatever. A magazine writer.
Right. I really love Douglas Adams. I would say this story kind of has some definite vibes towards that. Not only just the fact it's about a guy getting abducted by aliens. Yeah, but
also it has something about the end of the universe or the end of the world. Yeah,
right. It's but I definitely it's on the humorous side of things.
Okay.
That's I would say if you're.
Well, that's cool. Yeah.
If you enjoy reading things that are a little on the funnier, lighthearted side, might be for you.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what to think with the series title, Sunset Distortion. Where does that come from, or is that a spoiler?
No, not at all. So, Sunset Distortion is the name of the music magazine that repeatedly pops up throughout the book.
So it's like the Hitchhiker's Guide. Awesome.
There you go. That's it. It felt like it felt good. It felt good.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. There's something about the sci-fi that's like, sci-fi media always has fascinated me. Like for example, there's this one. I haven't published this book yet, but I've been working on it kind of on the back burner for a long time. And it's a science fiction novel just called The Prisoners, but it's about a band called The Prisoners in this sci-fi universe. It's that kind of thing. They all met when they're prisoners of war or whatever.
Yeah, you should be able to take take how you're going to title it from any direction. And,
absolutely.
It felt like it really kind of summed up nicely, kind of like the rock and roll vibe of the story.
No, that's awesome. So humorous with a musical bent, I assume, with that kind of stuff going on.
So the story follows a protagonist, a guy named Laser, middle-aged, plays in a thrash metal band. He was so close to making it, just right there, and then just poof.
Snatched away by aliens.
Snatched away by the grunge scene that came in. Kind of took heavy metal off of the marquee.
Yep, just instantly wrecked. Okay, I hear what you're saying.
And so the guy just keeps plugging away. We all have friends or people we know who are like that. Never give up the dream. Stick with it. And he just kind of gets... he's a man who's just kind of living in a rut, but it's a good rut, right? He knows what he does. He just plays bars and bar mitzvahs and just rocks out every Monday through Thursday. And
metal will rise again. Again.
Absolutely, my friend. So if you're into hard rock and heavy metal and music in general, there's a lot of references there. But yeah, one night after a gig, get snatched up by aliens, poof, and off we go.
Off into the universe. Oh, nice. And the end of time. but potentially. No, but actually that reminds me, because, you know, speaking of Douglas, you mentioned Douglas Adams earlier, and I remember my first book I ever read with him was actually the second Hitchhiker's Guidebook, The Restaurant at the End of the Universe, which is why that one always jumps out at me.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really funny one to start with, because at first I'm like, what the hell is this book? Like, I'd read some serious books at this point, and I'm like, I hadn't read the first one. I opened up this book, and they're having a seance on, like, page 3 during a spaceship battle. I'm like, this is insane. What is this crazy book? And it was an old, like, tiny little paperback with yellow pages. Yeah. It's kind of funny how that goes. But then eventually I have read the rest of the series, but it's kind of amusing. I was like, oh yeah, it's like, I must have been like 10 or 12. And by that point, I'm like, oh, I know all about The Hobbit. Or maybe I was a teenager. I don't know. But I was like, I've read The Hobbit. I've read a bunch of other books, like fantasy books and more, and even Ender's Game. I think I'd read Ender's Game at that point. So, like, I'm used to sci-fi being a little more serious.
Yeah.
Back then. Yeah.
I'm a big fan of, like, things that kind of take a different approach. You know, love Kurt Vonnegut and kind of his take on telling stories, and that's really what it is. You know, it's a lot of fun to tell stories and to try to put your own spin on it.
Yeah.
Maybe try to do something that hasn't really been done yet. And there are some conventions in science fiction that sometimes it's, you know, it's hard to get around if you want to tell a story that people can grasp onto. But at the end of the day, as long as you can make it your own, you know, make something worth reading.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think there's a certain, I mean, I really like that philosophy, and I think there's a certain bit of importance to it in that, you know, I mean, importance in not in the stodgy, this is a very important story kind of way, but in the, this is how you write stories. Just, this is how stories get written.
Right.
I mean, just a brief story here, because when I was a student, I'd already written a few books, right? But before a few novels before I got to 10th grade, when I met my first teacher, who I talked to much about my fiction. And ever since then, most of the teachers who taught English that I had were like, oh yeah, people were they had to be very conscious of what they were writing. They had to be extremely, like, every detail in place. These authors, they knew exactly what they were doing. And I'm like, no, excuse me. At least back then. But I guess, but the core thing that I found that has been really helpful for me is, and I want to know if you've got something, and because what you said makes me think you've got something similar here, is the core thing that I found is that just knowing what I like is really important. It's like half the battle when it comes to writing any book. Like, what part of this is driving me, you know?
Well, if it's inauthentic, the reader will pick up on it.
Absolutely.
And you know, so write what's authentic to you, even if it's weird. It doesn't make sense to some people. You know that's okay. You make what makes sense to you. It's ultimately your story. You're taking your experiences and you're kind of processing them through these fictional characters to one degree or another. And, you know, like I say, write what you know.
Absolutely, yeah. And what I know happens to be extremely weird. Weird is in, like, castles that get out of the ground and run around and fight things.
Oh, I love it. I'm gonna have to check it out.
That's actually in book 3 of my Demon Hunter series, but that's a weird one. And so maybe there's a bit of a learning curve there just to get to that point. But hey,
I'll start on book 3 and then we'll go way backwards.
Yeah, it might work. Who knows? What am I to say?
Just be a total anarchist with it. Ha, Adam.
Yeah, I read the books in reverse order. How about that? Yeah. No, but actually, that reminds me. I think I may have mentioned this recently, but on the show, but I've definitely been getting a lot of toy value out of my books lately, on my ebooks specifically. Not the books I wrote, but the books I'm reading. Because when I read because I realized, you know, one of the problems I've had with reading ebooks in the past was always that, you know, okay, you just flip the page and it's gone, but no, you can always turn back. But one of the things I'd always do with print books is I'd read down the page or onto the next page, you know, before, and then go back. You know, I just jump around. And that, to me, makes the book way more enjoyable. So I fully support your anarchist take on reading books.
Burn it to the ground.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's just, books are made for burning, I guess. Maybe that's not a good analogy. Anyway. Especially not in this day and age with the paper shortage and everything. Yeah.
That's right.
Not great.
Recycle it. If it's that bad, just recycle.
Yeah. So anyway, Paul, you have this this first book. Have you got other ones in the can, or are you planning a series? Sounds like you got a series in mind.
It's as of now, it's planned as a 5-part series. We'll see how quickly those crank out. I talked to other authors. They're like, yeah, I could a book out every 2 weeks or every 2 months, or a book that. I was like, man, I run a business. I have 2 kids at home. I mean, the fact that I'm putting out books is just on top of it, right? But
yeah,
maybe every other year you'll see something out of me. I'm not. There's only so much time. I typically write. I'll put my daughter to bed, and then I'll crack open my computer and I'll write until I'm ready to go down. And in that twilight hour where your brain is kind of tired, but then it kind of works for you.
Yes.
You're not in your normal headspace, and you can kind of get to that more creative mode.
Yeah. No, that's a sweet feeling. I used to get that like really early in the morning. I still do if I let myself go there. But if I wake up at because I'm not a night owl. I'm a morning person. So if I get up at 5 in the morning and I stumble downstairs, and I'm like, yeah, time to go, time to write some words. Yeah. Sometimes it happens. And I used to get up at 4 in the morning back in high school to do that. When I started out, that's when I was writing. I was like, okay, 4 in the morning, before school starts, right? And that was the time. But it also was an extremely weird time to be writing, honestly. Just okay, everyone else in the house is asleep. I go down to the basement where it's super cold, and at least most of the year, because I live in Minnesota. I just twiddle the keyboard for a couple hours. Cold. Yeah, exactly.
There's no time's the wrong time. Like I mentioned, I have 2 children. One's 6 months and one's 3.5. So I never get to sleep all the way through the night. And sometimes they'll wake me up and then say, it's 3 a.m. I think I'm going to go write for an hour.
Yeah. No, that rocks. I gotta say, get them when you can, right?
And you go do it. I was talking to a friend of mine. I was on a different podcast. A friend of mine, her name is Jen Lieberman.
I've been on that show.
Very talented person. And we're just talking about creativity and just creating. And I said, it's like going surfing. I went surfing one time and I learned I was very bad at it. But it makes a good analogy of creativity in that you're never going to catch a wave if you don't go to the beach. So every time you crack up a computer, you're not going to be guaranteed just cranking out 1,000 words of perfection. But you're never going to get those days if you don't sit down and do it. Absolutely.
And the key here is another thing to remember is if you have the time. I understand you do not, sir. But for those of us who do have the time, I write most of the time, most days I can write. I got some time, and it's kind of my day job. So I can sit there and and it's not about and as long as I have ideas, I can go, and that's a great feeling. But it also is one of those things. It also help. It also sometimes makes me lose sight of the fact that I'm writing this to have a good time, basically, and that's the core of it. It's not that I'm going into the office and plugging in 10,000 words a day because it's the only way I can make money. It sure isn't. If it was, I'd be screwed.
Life is simultaneously too long time doing something you hate.
Yes, it's too long and too short. I think we lost a bit of what you said there, but
I said life is simultaneously too long and too short to spend your time doing something you hate.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's it's like this podcast. I wouldn't do this podcast if I didn't enjoy it. Talking to people like you it makes my week. A lot of the time, and
that's because COVID's gotten us all a little crazy.
That's true, but I've been doing this show for a few years before COVID, and I've always been so I'm used to it. And I mean, sometimes I even take the show for granted, though. It's just too easy to take stuff for granted. That's why it's great to talk to somebody who's really got to kind of put forth the effort and make the time. Like you.
Yeah, I in a past life I was a musician. Obviously, if you're going to write a book about a musician, it helps if you yourself have lived that life.
It helps, yeah.
I played in a rock band called Inverse for 10 years, and we did a lot of touring. We put records out. We did the whole shebang. And then after that, I played in a band called The Infamous They that I wrote and produced a record for. We started playing some shows, and then I ended up getting married. The band went off and just broke up, and I haven't played in a band since. I had kids, and it's kind of hard to do all that. So I'm definitely bringing that to that kind of creative ethic, I guess, to what you have to do to be in a band, and kind of bringing that to the world of books now for me. Because you have to stay on it. You know, you got to go to band practice, got to play those gigs, got to promote your shows, got to always kind of be swimming in that little fishbowl to make it happen. Because if you don't, then it falls apart.
Yeah, it's all practice. I mean, writing is very much like that. If you don't spend the time writing, you're going to lose track. You're going to lose the thread of what makes you, of what you like. That's one thing. That happened to me back in college. And because I got so kind of taken away by my English major, then I didn't enjoy that much. I mean, the books I read for my English major weren't my favorites. I'm not really a classical literature kind of guy.
Yeah.
But when... But then, I mean, then for a few years after that, it's like, where is my joy? Why am I not enjoying this anymore? Luckily, I seem to have found it again, so that's pretty good.
Yeah. Where is your joy?
Yes.
That's exactly it. Where is your joy? Find it. Hold on to it. But it moves. It's a moving.
Yeah, it is a moving target. Jeez, yeah. I mean, I don't know if you know this. This one band, what is it? Royal Hunt. They had an album called Moving Target. They were like a power metal band that was around. I mean, they might still be around for all I know, but, you know, I listened to them back when I was a teenager, a little old band. I think they're from Pennsylvania. Anyway.
Maybe they didn't make it out to the West Coast.
Probably not. They were pretty tiny. As far as I know. Anyway. But it's just one of those... It's just that, right, you know, I'm as a big metalhead, I can totally see what you're saying here, even though I've never played an instrument in my life. At least not well. But what I was trying to say before is that the practice of doing a practice of something is how you maintain your love for it in a lot of cases. So yeah,
you maintain your love for it. You know, you sharpen your knives, you get better at it, and you get to release all of your pressure and angst that's building up inside you. You know, so you just don't go crazy on someone on the freeway. So, you know, you got to get it out. And being creative, I feel like whatever that mode is, be it art or acting or music or writing, I mean, just as long as you're doing it and you're able to kind of process all those emotions inside you in a constructive manner, you know, you probably live longer. Shoot.
Oh yeah, I hope so. Don't got time to die young. Anyway, sorry, too amused by my own stupid line there. So anyway, Paul, you got this 5-part series, humorous series, and do you have any plans for other stuff going on, or I guess you said you're not super fast at the writing, so maybe you're.
Well, don't get me wrong. I can crank it out, but
okay.
I spend 2/3 of my time editing.
Yeah.
I love the process of editing. I don't feel like you're getting bogged down in it. I really love the process. I enjoy kind of going through it, picking it apart, and then trying to... So I approached writing this book and its sequel. I'm about 45,000 words into the sequel.
Nice.
So, like writing a pop song. And I know that people really dog on pop music, but I think that, I mean, as someone that's written in every single genre, pop music is hard to write in that it's very exact because you don't want anything that's superfluous. It's its own kind of approach to it. There's no, you don't get that 5-minute long self-gratifying guitar solo. And I definitely don't have the linguistic equivalent of that in the books. You know, I try to stay away from fluff. Like, can I say what's in this paragraph? Can I say it in 2 sentences?
Yes.
And you know what I mean? And it's going through that whole process of writing out your thoughts, your ideas, making sure that all the connective tissue is there, and that it's linear train of thought, and you don't lose the reader. And then from there, it's like, okay, how can I make this simpler? And I feel like that approach really works for me, and the people that have read it and given me feedback have largely commented on it, said it was really easy to follow.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
it worked.
It worked.
No, but editing is super fun. Go on, though. Yeah, it can be anyway if you're the right kind of person. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, it's like, we all love Game of Thrones, but I don't need a page-long description of fish soup, right? It's
nope.
The same kind of idea. Like, it's get to the point. Give me the hook.
Yeah.
Give me the chorus. Let's do it.
So it's interesting you say, because your book's like 90,000 words long then, 90,000 words, something like that.
85, 86 in that world, yeah.
Cool, but like that's actually for me now. That feels pretty long. Like I'm writing 40 to 60,000 word books a lot of the time now. But that's just because that's just my taste. Obviously, nothing wrong with either. Shorter or longer, it's all good. But it's interesting to me that you bring that up because that's a ton of that's like whatever 300 pages of exactness. So no wonder it takes so long. If that's your philosophy, that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, that's my process, and everyone's process is different, and that's what makes creating things so great, is that there's no right or wrong way. I mean, some stuff can be interpretably better or worse, right? Tastes, but you have to do what feels good for you as you make it. And for me, this book, it took me about 2 years to write and then another 2 years to edit.
Ooh, wow. Well, you were learning, though. You had never written a book before. Yeah.
I had never written a book before. I was learning. You have to create your characters, create your universe, and the sequel is just flying along because I don't have to reinvent the wheel. The characters exist. If you write your character well enough, your job becomes easier because how they're going to react to any situation is already a given.
Yes. That's actually a really good point because if you don't have if your character isn't strong, that actually makes the book harder to write because you're constantly reaching for the next how do they react to that? I don't know.
Right.
Yeah. Whereas if you know them and if the reader knows them, then it becomes obvious what they have to do and what they do. Yeah. Yeah, that's really important. That's a really good point because I've been really bad at characters for a lot of my career. Well, not my career, but a lot of my pre-publishing career. I didn't publish till I thought I was getting pretty good at character. But it's one of those... go on.
So keep that as a guidepost.
Yes. Absolutely. But I guess one of the things I would say is that a character, if it's too subtle, can really get lost on readers and on the writer. Like it definitely happens to me. Like if the character isn't really making a statement of who they are early in a story, for me, and I discover my own books, and I discover my characters completely, then I can more easily lose who they are. I'm like, who is this? I mean, I wrote some notes about this character, but I don't know enough about them.
Right. They have to be fleshed out. You have to know who they are. What makes them tick? Why are they the way they are? What's their favorite food? I don't know if you can get that deep, but it's the more detail you put into it, the easier your job will be as you drag them from scenario to scenario.
Absolutely, yeah. So, speaking of dragging along from scenario to scenario, I was going to ask you if you've had time to read anything lately. Sounds like you're a busy dude.
Largely right now. So I used to pre-COVID in the before times.
Yes.
I used to travel a lot for work, and that was my great time for reading. Just on an airplane for 5 hours, I could just crack open a book. And now, largely when I'm reading books, it's to a 3-year-old. So I would say my book suggestion would be for the parents out there in listener land. My daughter loves the book. It's called The Book with No Pictures. It's by B.J. Novak. And it's just something that you can kind of get animated and read it and get weird. And my daughter loves it. She demands it every night.
Interesting. Okay. Is that the guy who wrote for The Office?
I believe it's the same guy.
The American Office, anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. So she loves it. It's largely when I'm reading, it's children's books to my kid because
cool.
I mean, it's all right. I've read Good Night Moon probably 1,000 times. No big deal. I'll probably recite it at this point. But yeah, that's small children, no alone time. And if I have alone time, am I going to read a book or am I going to write? Oh, I'm going to write.
Yeah, no, I understand. And I used to be the same way before I managed to clear out more of my time. But I don't foresee that happening for you in the near future as you have a 6-month-old child.
Oh, no. Yeah.
So, but good luck. Keep enjoying the kids' books. That's the moral of the story.
I did. You were asking earlier about other books in the hopper. I wrote a kids' book.
Oh, yeah? Well, cool.
And I had an author, and, he's currently on the other side of the world, or an artist, and he's currently on the other side of the world right now. I might have to go shop for someone new. I mean, I'd be blessed if he was able to do it. A guy named Julio Labra. Fantastic artist, just next level. I couldn't believe he agreed to do it, but again, this guy makes a lot of money doing what he does, and he was just gonna, it was the middle of COVID, no one was doing anything. He's like, bro, want to do a kids book? He's like, yeah, let's do a kids book.
Sure, why not?
But I have the kids book. It's just I need to get the art for it, and I'm also writing a horror story. I don't know if it's going to be a novella, if it's going to be a short story.
Okay.
Working on that one right now too, but it's right now I'm going all in on the sequel right now. That's
nice.
That's where my brain is at. That's my spare moments.
Yeah.
Kind of the gears are turning, thinking about like, okay, how am I going to string together these series of actions to get from A to B, right?
That's how you get stuck in a book. Yeah, that's how it works. You just lodged in it.
Put some music on and let the brain start doing its thing.
Right. Yeah, and actually, I don't really have a book recommendation this week because I've been doing a lot of these podcasts lately. So there's been a few lined up,
I got a great book recommendation for you.
Sure.
It's called Sunset Distortion: The Pyramid at the End of the World by Paul Bahou.
There you go. We walked right into the plug section. So yeah, go check that out. How do you spell Bahou for people?
Bahou.
Nice and simple. Nice and simple.
Yet everyone gets it wrong, but I'm not offended. I've had a whole lifetime of people getting it wrong. No bigs.
Yes, excellent. Thanks for being on the show, Paul. It's been a ton of fun.
Yeah, Tim. My pleasure.
And as for this podcast, you can find more of us at mentalcellarpublications.com. And I say us all the time, but it's really just me. That's my website, mentalcellarpublications.com. And you can find my books on timniederreiter.com/books. Thanks for listening, folks. Oh, and also I still have that Tim Niederreiter, writer website.com. But, not much is going on right there right now. So check that out if you want to see some pretty pictures. But thanks for listening, everybody. Any last words, Paul?
I wrote a joke. It's really stupid. You want to hear it?
Yeah, let's hear it.
All right. Keep it in the rock and roll theme, right? Okay. You know Jonathan Davis, the lead singer of Korn?
Yeah.
Okay. Who is Jonathan Davis's favorite American president?
I'm stumped. I'm gonna say John Adams.
Barack Obama.
Of course. Excellent.
Thank you very much.
Well, you got me to laugh. Hopefully you got somebody else too. All right, folks. Thanks for listening, everybody. Yeah.
Go to Amazon. Buy it.
Yeah, stay safe, folks. Take it easy and have a good week. Bye-bye.
That tears it.